we have a very special guest with us today, an Invincible, an Arsenal legend. It is Martin Keown.
He left Arsenal because Tony Adams was coming through absolute bullshit. Yeah. So let's get it right. Let's say it's, try to tell the truth. Straight away I knew I'd made a mistake. Straight away I knew.
Why?
Because I'd gone for the money, I'd gone for the wrong reasons. I'd heard different tales of what happened at halftime. And I want to say what I said. Who do you think you are telling me I'm feeling sorry for myself?
The Battle of Old Trafford at United. You jump up and you accidental deliberate.
But Simon Jordan's a big figure.
His bark is bigger than his bite.
Is your Arteta the guy? Hi, and welcome along to AFTV. We're here for a very special A-list. It's called the A-list because we bring on very special guests, and we have a very special guest with us today, an Invincible, an Arsenal legend. It is Martin Keown in the building.
Cheers! Yes, Martin.
Listen, it's great.
Morning, Cecil.
Yes.
Thank you guys for inviting me down. It's all changed around here. Finsbury Park's changed massively. I was in Diggs just up the road, and I was almost lost. I thought I was in a different place, or the development.
Wow.
So it's nice, and finally found your studio
So
down a back street.
You don't come in this end when you go to the game. You got that.
I go to Holloway
out.
Road. I go to Holloway Road, the station that never was, that should have been developed, but will be developed if we want to enlarge our ground.
Okay, I thought you'd be driving in and then blacked out, Mercedes Sprinters.
No, that's UEFA, FIFA. You're thinking.
So he has a bit of that lifestyle. It's nice.
Yeah, I just rock up on the train.
We're going to talk a lot about your life in football, because listen, you're one of those people that have transcended football and then become a pundit on TV, a person that's like, even if you're a young kid right now, they'll probably know you more for your punditry and the stuff you do on TV and on radio, and they hear your voice from there. For older guys like me, I know you obviously for all that as well, but specifically for how good you was as a footballer for Arsenal and for many other teams. And it's great that you've got a new book out, because in that book, you tell the story of your football career and beyond. And now it's there. It's laid there for everybody to know exactly who Martin Keown is, because it's almost like you've had two lives. Your football life, they're all football related, but your football life and journey, and then your media life and journey.
Well, I actually talk about that in the book, about almost like it happened to someone else.
Yeah.
And I have these football dreams where Arsène Wenger is called me back again. I'm in my 50s and he's asked me to play another game. And I'm in the dugout, the tunnel going out, and my lace breaks. And the boss is like, Martin, you got to play. Come on, you need to play. And I'm like, and I wake up and I'm relieved that I'm not actually playing. And then I feel, oh no, that it's really gone. It's gone forever. That football career is gone. And I wanted to put into words in the book what that's like. It's like a massive loss that you're never going to get back. And how you were in dressing rooms with some of the best players you ever put on a pair of football boots. Yeah. And then you're having to be taken out of that dressing room. When you think that they're going to be riding through Europe, winning everything. When I left the team in 2004, we go unbeaten a whole season. You see all these, young men. They were boys, really. Vieira's, Henry's become these superstars, amazing, driven animals on the pitch, and you hope that you played a part in that. Certainly Wenger creates an environment which allowed me to be me. And they were fantastic days. So, 20 years on, I can reflect. I was probably the most senior player. I was worried about dementia. I was worried about, whether we would be able to remember these stories. And my sons were saying, come on, Dad, and then I'd see Wikipedia and things that were incorrect, number of games. You left Arsenal because Tony Adams was coming through absolute bullshit. Yeah. So let's get it right. Let's say it's, try to tell the truth.
You're on AFTV today, and you get to talk your whole truth and give the the viewers and listeners
not everything, because you want them to go and get the book, but yeah.
Yeah, we can dip into some stories. Let's go from the beginning. Obviously, on there you speak about how you get from YTS to pro. You're coaching the Bath. Yeah, YTS. For me, it's a scholar.
I know that
I was a scholar.
Ages, man.
Yeah,
YTS. See,
yeah.
I'm of that age. I remember YTS.
See, I never knew that. I was a scholar for me. But you had a coach in the Bath, and you overheard a conversation, and that's how
Steve Birkinshaw, and that was his style. you know, having a conversation about me, with me cleaning up around the baths. Do you know? So that was the pro step to become pro.
Yeah.
But you know, it was kind of a mystical place of Highbury, turning up to do the evening training, getting a train to Aston Station, which was what formerly it was Gillespie Road.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, until Herbert Chapman puts it on the map. I'm standing, there's supposed to be a football ground here somewhere. I've come with my sister. We've had to go to the kiosk to the left. Excuse me, is there a football ground here? What do you mean, is there a football ground? It's just behind those houses. And then it comes into view, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's an incredible place, you know, these Victorian houses, working class men, and this, you know, theatre of dreams, I suppose. Behind, dimly lit, you can just see onto the pitch, and it's like, wow, look at this. And I arrived and I came into the club, and Al Fields was doing evening training that first night. And Al Fields links back to the 30s, and he introduced me to Les Compton. So really, I feel like I'm enriched with the club from the 30s all the way up here now, almost to 2030. That's 100 years of football, and you know, if you think about it. And it was one of those where, you know, Alf was steeped in the club, you know, stand up straight, son. You're coming from Oxford. How much are we paying you for your expenses? I didn't want to tell them my sister was coming with me, and my dad had to fund that because he wasn't that happy with me coming from training at, you know, 13 years of age on the tube. It was coming from Oxford. But I did it all. It's funny, I bumped into a school friend the other day, someone who sat near me, a girl who sat a couple of seats away. She said, you never told anybody. We just saw it in the Oxford Mail that you'd signed for Arsenal. And I used to have a taxi waiting for me outside. I made sure the taxi was so far away no one could see me get in it, because I didn't really want it to go wrong. And for everyone to say, oh, well, you're giving it large and now you haven't made it. So I did it in a certain way. But that journey to London, you know, arriving in London, throngs of people, buzzing, going to the game, knew London like the back of my hand on the tube. And then suddenly, the evening training with all these London guys and all these really good players. And you've got to then improve you're better than everyone. It's a culling exercise, but quickly I understood what it was about. You know, you got to shine, and they kept on picking me every 6 weeks. It was a new group. And then I started seeing some of the players, Tony Adams and Rocastle and Thomas, and one or two of these guys popping up at the training sessions. And we had an incredible Arsenal youth team in 83, which we'll come to later, because it takes on the 92 class of Manchester United. It doesn't really get discussed. And in really the club is, when we say it's out of order, it's just, it doesn't really value what was to come from that group, and the number of trophies, the league titles, nearly 5,000 first-class games from that group of players. You know, this is Merson and Quinn, who weren't even in the proper picture. And you got Mickey Thomas and Rocastle and Tony out captains the club with such distinction. I'm in there alongside him. You got Martin Hayes, who's the top goal scorer for 2 seasons. Gus Caesar, who does 7 or 8 years at the club. 8 of us make it into the first team. So it's kind of like a purple patch for the club, and I'm unearthing it again in the book. Okay,
it's nice. I want to. This is a bit for me from the YTS wage to pro wage. Was there a massive jump? Because I remember when I went from scholar to being off my pro, there wasn't massive jumps. And I know the TV money hadn't come in yet, but for you, was it just more about I just want to be a pro? I was just a pro at Arsenal.
Well, every year there were 4 apprentices, and they were like golden tickets. Do you know? Yeah. It's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, really. And so you got one of those, you knew you were decent. 4 first years, 4 seconds. You got 8 players, and you got floaters. You got players that are coming on trial, and you've got schoolboys. I was one of the schoolboys the year before.
Okay.
So I played against Danny Wallace, who was at Southampton as a schoolboy, and that was my sort of ticket. They said, wow, what about that performance? They gave me a contract. So we all knew that once you got one of those apprenticeships for, you were decent. And it was a case of just like trying to get that. Every day it was mentioned, you're not good enough to be a pro. Do you know, like I find my diaries, you know, you're not good enough. Everything I'm writing is you're good enough. You are good enough, day after day. And obviously someone's beating you down. It's a balance, by the way. And in the book, I'm very honest about the youth team manager, which I have no hang-ups with now, Tommy Coleman, made life doubly difficult for me to try to come through. I was living in digs. I asked to leave, and that upset his wife. It then upset him. So we had issues. You can call it bullying now. You can say whatever you want. It's very, it was a fact. I'm only trying to tell the truth. God rest his soul. But maybe it made me stronger. Maybe it made me tougher. But when I eventually leave the club, because of it wasn't. I
want to come to this.
It wasn't a great time for me coming through. So it was I was defiantly got in the first team.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of, okay, let's see now. I've done my side of it. You better do yours. If you don't, I'm out of here.
Well, is it just for you to next question there, right? Is it I think your son works within academy system now. Is it a lot better now for the players that are coming through? Is it easier or harder?
What I say to my son is, to every boy or girl he works with, treat them as if, and you haven't got children of your own yet, but treat them as if they're your own children, your own kids.
That's tough.
And if you do that, you'll give every kid the opportunity to be a professional footballer. And even if he doesn't, I'd like to think I'm not involved with the academy, but every young player that comes into our academy is enriched and is a better person by the time they leave the academy. There's some harsh lessons. It hurts. It's painful. You've got to try and rise to the top of the pile. And it's a beautiful feeling when you can get in the team. When I look at Saka, getting Smith-Rowe, painful to see him leave. Nelson on loan. These guys who are coming through the system. Wanyeri as well, another great talent. They're living the dream. And for Saka, it's perfect. But for those who don't make it, it hurts, But as I say, they weren't rolling out the red carpet for me. It was a tough journey. And then it was a case of, okay, guys, £50 a week rise. I was expecting a little bit more. I tell you what, I will settle for 100 a week. Back in those days, you were talking a couple of £100 a week. Our first year apprentices, we were on £20 a week. And second years was £25 a week.
Okay.
So you had 2 full years of that. So you were ready to go on to those. You needed to come out of digs. I'm living in digs, for crying out loud. I needed to sort of have my wings and lead my life in a free manner. But the club was sort of holding that back.
Were you living with another player or not? Was it just you and Diggs, just quickly?
I was in digs with quite a number of people. John Kay was in digs with me. Nicky Beaumont, who was a great kid. I learned a lot from him. I saw the pain when he was released.
Yeah.
These are lessons.
Martin, I'm intrigued about, and big up Lee Judges, he's a contributor on the channel. He wanted to know about the move to Aston Villa. You kind of touched on it. So did you leave Arsenal with a bit of taste in your mouth at the time before, or was it what is more? I need to hear more about it.
What was it? Because there's always been, and you sort of touched on it right at the start of the show, the big rumour that you left because Tony Adams was coming through. So that's why you decided to leave.
What's the truth?
Absolute bullshit. Look, I've climbed the mountain. I'm in the team. I've just played 23 games on the bounce. Yeah. Who's 19 playing in a Premier League team right now and plays 23 games on the bounce? Surely that he's wanted, isn't he? He's kept at the club. If John Stones does that now on his new journey at City, there's a new contract for him and he's going to stay. So there's nothing about ability. It was just that George Graham had come in and George didn't really know me. In fact, we had a good meeting until George told me that I played against Millwall, the team that he was managing before he came to Arsenal, and then said that I had a good game for Brighton against Millwall. I said, that's funny because I never even played. It was Gary O'Reilly that was playing. Now, Gary was an okay player, but somewhat slower than me. So I wasn't hoping he was judging me on that. And I thought that the conversation went downhill after that. So, but when I went to Villa, Doug Ellis was very skilled, like he saw me coming from miles away, tripled my wages, incredible signing on fee. And it was like, okay, what do we do now? Do we sign? But if I'd have left it, 24 hours, 48 hours, there's no way I'd have gone there. Straight away, I knew I'd made a mistake.
Straight away?
100% straight away, I knew.
Why?
Because I'd gone for the money, I'd gone for the wrong reasons. I only ever wanted to get in the Arsenal first team. Really, that was what I wanted. I was enjoying that. I was on holiday. I went on holiday 2 days after, and Arsenal fans were coming up to me on holiday. Never happened before. No one even knew me, to say what a fantastic season. And I was thinking, I've hidden this secret. But Villa had signed the contract, approached me kind of illegally, really, and they'd put the contract in a vault. And it was one of those where I didn't really understand. I could have just gone back to Arsenal to say, guys, I made a big mistake here. Can somebody unravel this for me? But then again, it was again about principle. I've given them my word. I'm going to stay. The first day at training, Paul Elliott came up to me and said, what on earth have you done? Come here. And I said, I know. I can see straight away. I spoke to the first team coach in pre-season and said, I think we're going to get relegated. We're not doing enough work here. Don Howe, his pre-seasons were incredible. We used to do the cross-country runs. It was so well organised, so professional. Yeah. Don was a very good coach, not necessarily a fantastic manager. Yeah. That's probably why I found myself in that situation. Don was the manager when I got in the team and didn't look after my contract. We talk about all of this as well in the book. It's very honest. And then Villa start to spiral. You know, it's an example of really good players. You know, you're never too good to go down, and that was probably the biggest example of that there.
George Graham was
Paul Elliott was a good, but that's a good centre back pairing. You and Paul Elliott.
Well, Alan Evans was the one that we were playing with. Alan was a European Cup winner. There was sort of still guys. Gary Shaw was at the club. Again, God rest his soul. He's just passed. So lots of very good players. You had Mark Walters. Wally was a fantastic talent. Steve Hodge, who came back from the World Cup, saying he didn't want to be there with that Maradona shirt that he had, which he's just sold for a fortune.
He sold for over $1 million, didn't he?
So it was a difficult dressing room, and I could smell it. Yeah. But I realised then how good those Arsenal guys were. You know, that youth team. Rocky rang me when I signed for Villa saying, I'm coming too. You got to sort it out. Get me to come. I've had enough. Because the guys the contracts were terrible they were offering us at the time. Okay. So it was one of these, like, you have to, do you love the club? Yes, right, sign. Do you know? So it's kind of like we were being pushed. Mickey Thomas told me recently they all got new deals when I left, you know? So I didn't do it for that reason. But hopefully it changed. And I think David Dean then came in, didn't he? And David was around that period, was like, come on, let's look after the kids.
Yeah, we had David here actually in the building. George Graham then, so you said you missed, it was a mistake going to Aston Villa because you missed the boys, the level of players, not the George Graham coach and manager.
I saw that as well.
That as well? Okay.
Well, yeah, because it then took me too long to pick up this business of, like, they just used to storm out. And it was all done on feeling where the ball was, pressure on the ball. And of course, I'd been, I think, a better individual defender than a lot of those players, but actually killing the rest of the players by dropping a bit deep, and then they were having to just run back with me. Whereas once I understood it then, to be honest, our youth team partnership with me and Tony didn't really click again until 97, 98. We do 14 games at the end of the season. We get 12 clean sheets. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, those two played together, didn't they, somewhere in this journey? Because obviously it was a back four, and I had to try and push my way into that back four. But it was only researching for the book that we found these statistics, which were pretty damn good.
Fair. Go on.
I was going to say, leaving Arsenal and being full of regret, then it must have been amazing then
to pinch myself
to then come back, because that don't normally happen, does it? Normally you leave a club. That's it. Or you come back.
It's not as good. It's not always as good when you come back.
You come back when you're really old, or so. I mean, but
we had these chats. In the audio, I've got the actual discussions with Tony Adams. So
it's a great
Tony is actually the first person to say, let's talk. I want to help. He didn't have his hand in the air for offside. He had his hand in the air to come and help me, which was great. So we kind of we talked through all of this, and there's a closure, which is because we were competing against each other, but for the good of the club, do you know? And I think the partnership, when it finally comes back together again, but there are 2 or 3 different Tony Adamses that I experience, going to the Ali Pali with him as a kid when we're both, wet behind the ears. And then me moving away. Tony's father wrote to me when I left, really nice letter saying they were disappointed, understood my why. I think Tony always understood why. And then I'm coming back, and Tony then is this different character, distant. Obviously, he's an alcoholic at that point, so I can see a different Tony Adams. And then I've had to wait for him to come back to more like he was before. And then when he arrives back in 97, 98, that's when I see the Tony Adams I was expecting to walk into the building with. and it just took off. So I just feel the qualities of what he had and what Steve Bold had suited me down to the ground. We don't mention Boldy enough. Outstanding player.
Yeah.
But that I preferred to play with someone who was perhaps more dominant in the air than I could sort of sweep up around if that system allowed it.
Were you surprised to come back?
Well, Terry Murphy called me and said there's some interest, and then Howard Kendall, because I used to drive Howard Kendall back home after every away game. There was something else that's the Everton fans will be really interested in. He had a little bit of a drink problem, and I was worried about losing him as a manager, so I took him home.
Wow.
And he said, Arsenal are in for you, what do you think? And I was like, right, okay, I'm not even going to look too closely at the money. I'm going to go back. I had a clause in my contract which made me one of the highest paid players, which again Arsenal reneged on. So we still had issues. It didn't go away, but it wasn't going to affect my love for the club. In fact, that was negotiated out because they wouldn't stand by it. And Howard said, look, we won't announce this because I know the wages aren't great. And I was thinking, well, it's unfinished business. Let's just get back there. Let's get back there. It's the club I want to be at. I'm pretty certain we can win things. I'm fed up watching them win things. I want to be winning things with them. So I go back.
Wow. And the rest is history, right? You know what I mean? It went back for the second time, and it was a much better time for you. I mean, like...
It wasn't initially. I was cup tied for 2 cup competitions. Yeah. And then I play 9 of the 11 games to the final in the Cup Winners' Cup when Alan Smith scores that great goal against Parma. Yeah. And then I'm on the bench, injured, pulled my hamstring 5 days before the game. The boss is doing a fitness test with me in the morning of the game. I said, I'm saying to George, I can't play. Do you know, as much as I want to play. In those days, you didn't have your 5 subs.
Yeah.
So I had to suck it up and watch another game from the sidelines. So when Wenger arrives, it kind of like, it's big for me because it unravels the coil, really, the talent that I have. And then everything starts to fall into place to play this incredible football.
What was the question that always gets asked to a lot of players who played under Arsène Wenger? What was it like? He must have been so much different. Some of the managers you've described, your Howard Kendalls, your people like that, they're old school, right? Great managers, but old school. He was that new guy who came along and changed loads of things. Was that a big shock, a big culture shock to you and to other players?
My first question mark was, can nice guys win things? Because I think a lot of the personality has been shaped by George Graham. There's a lot of good about George Graham, and understanding of the game. You're too nice, he used to say to me.
He said, yeah.
And it's like...
To you?
Yeah.
I can't believe he was saying that. That must have been way before.
That was one of his sayings. No mistake, there'll be changes, was the sort of like, it's not an ideal thing to hear from your manager. Yeah. So I think we're, and maybe that served its purpose. Okay, so when Arsène Wenger comes in, there's a little gap as well. Bruce Rioch, let's not forget. Bruce Rioch comes in and makes me captain when Tony's not around. 96, I'm Arsenal's Player of the Year, and I don't make it to the Euros. There's a lot of stuff in there. And then Wenger arrives, and he was so reassuring. He believed so much in me. There was such a trust. I'd never felt that from anyone else. And it was like, Martin, I believe in you. You can play, and don't just give it to people. You can play, and you felt fulfilled. And then he started bringing in all these incredible players, like Patrick Vieira. How instant was it when we saw him play that diagonal ball at Sheffield Wednesday? He comes off the bench, plays a 40-yard pass. And Nelka, I've never seen anything like it. His pace was just ridiculous. I was talking to Rio Ferdinand the other day, and Rio said, I thought I was running in sand. Like the guy was just rapid. Overmars, petite.
What did you respond better to?
I was giggling when they got the ball. Because I knew what they were going to do to these players. We trained against them every day. People forget I'm training against Henry and Vieira and Bergkamp and Nelka and all these top players every day. Every day I'm up against them. Let's have it. Yeah. Do you know? Because it feels like Wenger's trying to finish us all. Do you know? Because it's like if they embarrass us, it's the end of. So we had to I stuck around for 8-9 years at Wenger, and it was a revolutionary period in our English game, and we're now all trying to find that level. I feel
back at Arsenal. Let's. I want to touch in on all the players. Actually, that'll be the next session. Before I get into it, what did you respond better to? The George Graham? Because in your book you say you like being told directly, but Wenger didn't seem to have that approach. It seems like he was more nurturing, and I think nowadays football is that when it comes to managers now. But what do you think you responded better to? The telling off and telling, get your man, or?
I don't know anyone who likes a rollicking. I've never met that person.
Fair.
I don't really agree with all that. I'm into the psychology of it though.
Yeah.
And it was like, my father was a connoisseur of performance. He didn't know the game, but he knew a performance. And he would say, look, you're ball watching, get your foot in.
Yeah.
And it was like, my father pushed me to the limit, absolute limit. Let me tell you, every time I came in the car after the game, he grilled me for fun, okay? It was never a kind of like, never a well done, really.
Yeah.
So it was like the managers that in my professional life gave me that feeling they still believed in me, but pushed me to the limit, got the best from me. The ones that actually thought I wasn't convinced they really believed in me, they didn't get the best out of me. So Wenger was that. He was my kind of football father.
Yeah.
And he trusted in me. You might and you'll find a way. I believe in you. And it empowered me. It's a different style of management. Some players sit back, what was it the boss was doing? He was doing everything. He was doing everything, letting us be ourselves.
Yeah.
In the book, I talk about when we get to the Liverpool game and we're in this season of like going out of the FA Cup, out of the Champions League.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stand up in the dressing room. And again, I'd heard different tales of what happened at halftime. And I thought, no, I need to, look, I stand up because of the environment the gaffer creates, but let's get it right. And I want to say what I said. In the book, I tell you people what I say. But it's what the performance that it comes from that in the second half would have happened anyway. But Henry scores a goal as if to say, hey, don't you come for me. Who do you think you are telling me I'm feeling sorry for myself? Which is all they were guilty of. But it's natural, isn't it? You lose the Champions League, Wayne Bridge scores a ridiculously late goal. We go out of the FA Cup. It still hurts me now. But this group was an incredible group of people. Some of the best players I've ever played with, and they just needed reminding of how good they were in a moment, and then they go and do the rest. That was an incredible performance against Liverpool.
What was the reaction when you stood up?
Was Wenger in the changing room? Did he speak?
Boss had spoke, but the boss was good. Whenever I was injured, the boss would say to me, Martin, if ever you want to come into the dressing room, you come in. I'm not allowing everyone in, but you come in. If you want to speak before the game, because I always had a few words before, just in the rallying, the boss was in charge. Never did I really speak at halftime, rarely. This was rare. But you could just feel that there was a, wow, here we are again.
So it's happening.
It's happening with City right now, isn't it?
Fair.
Do you know? Like where you're looking and you're thinking, this great man Pep is not able to find the words. And it's like, well, they've lost 7 games on the bounce. What's happening? But we'd had these discussions with the boss was like, we never lose. So what happens if we do lose? How are we going to cope? And when you do lose, it's like a bereavement.
Yeah.
But for those of us who lived in the real world of football, we've seen it all for many years. No. Come on. We've only lost a game of football. We need to do more. And it could all go as it nearly did that day against Liverpool. You fall off a cliff when you lose that confidence. And we're seeing it now with City.
That's amazing. Right, just some of the players as well that you've played alongside. I want to go, it's funny, we had David Seaman in here and he said about Tony Adams, there was 3 different Tony Adams, but they're all amazing footballers, by the way. And it's so mad that you said the same thing. There's 2 or 3 different Tonys. But like one thing I've read in the book that he got sent away to France. Was he playing during that time before he there
was a game against Blackburn. You may remember it. And the game we lost at home against Blackburn. Live on it. Well, it was a match of the day game. Match of the day I think Alan Hansen put him away. You could see Tony wasn't really what he should have been. Yeah, I broke my shoulder in pre-season playing for England, so I missed the start of this season, and I was coming back. I was coming back. And so I played a few games, and I got another hamstring, which is normal when you come back. And then it was looking like Tony wasn't really holding his end up, really, like the Tony we already knew. There was an ankle injury for Tony, so the boss just stepped in and said, "Right, Tony, off you go. You go to France." I think that's when Tony writes his book. I didn't know that. We've explained this since. I think he was gone for it must have been a good 6 weeks. Maybe he was out of the country for a month. Sorted himself out, came back. And then when he comes back after that, that's the Tony Adams that we are looking for. The Tony Adams I was expecting to see when I arrived back at the club, maybe 3 years earlier. And he's on fire. You can see light at the end of the tunnel. You can see there's a Premier League there.
Did you not speak to him at all in that time? Was it France? Was he trained?
No.
Was he?
No.
Blimey.
we didn't really know the extent. Tony had announced that he was an alcoholic before the boss arrived. In fact, it was Patrick Vieira's very first team meeting. Patrick must have been looking around thinking, what on earth's going on, you know?
Bloody hell, that's mad.
We'd had George go, and that was, you know, there was an issue there.
Yeah.
Then it was Bruce. And then we had Arsène Wenger, who was managing long distance because he didn't want to take the job properly. He had given his word to Grand Passé to stay there in Japan. So it was a kind of rudderless period for us.
Yeah.
And then the start of that season, it became, we started to lose games. And I remember the boss has a meeting to try to discuss and Tony wasn't even there. Tony was in France trying to recuperate, trying to recover. But that was really good management from the boss to take him out of it.
Yeah.
And say, right, okay, no, we can cope here now.
Yeah.
You get yourself right and come back when you're ready. And he found the right moment to re-engage him with the team.
Nice. Ian Wright. Now, I have heard some stories of Ian Wright in the past. Being a bit of a bad boy, let's just say he's very good with motor vehicles. The story you've got in your book is, honestly, people, is phenomenal. I don't want to spoil it, but I just want to talk about, you know, as a team, there's a lot of, I suppose, hard men. I think I heard like Bergkamp was quite easy. He would just be a little bit aggressive, you know, he was very good, you know, on the ball and whatnot. You seen as a, you know, a hard man player. Ian Wright, I heard, was quite, a bad boy, say. Was people fearful of him as well?
God, no. He's a funny guy.
Funny, yeah.
You know, like an Eddie Murphy type character.
Oh, wow.
There's always you knew Ian was going to be in front of a TV screen somewhere.
Fair.
But Ian could be impulsive and he wasn't very patient. And this particular story about the bus where Ian drives the coach,
crazy,
because the training ground gets burnt down, and Arsène Wenger comes in. He didn't like the training ground anyway.
Yeah,
you know, the directors took him there, and there was lots of green pitches. He said, "Well, they're not even. There's no irrigation. There's no nets up. Yeah. If we shoot, the ball goes into a cornfield. So how do you expect me to work here?" And they weren't used to that. They were used to everyone saying, "Wow, it's an incredible facility." So this man straight away was questioning. Arsène Wenger was questioning.
Quality.
So we had to travel. When it burnt down, we found Sopwell House was a hotel nearby with all the necessary facilities. So we'd go there and train. And then the driver would come with the kit from the ground, and he'd take a rest. And Ian was getting really annoyed. So the day he just decides to sit at the wheel and drive. But all of these things, the thing is, the French players are thinking, these English guys, they're crazy. Man, they're crazy. But it brought everyone, it fast-tracked everyone together.
Yeah.
That bus journey. It's incredible because you know, in the morning, everybody's on the bus and you integrate a little bit more. And I think somehow that fast track just into winning that double that season.
That's like me stealing your car when you're late because you're taking so long.
And don't bother with that.
He was late this morning.
There you go.
I wasn't late. I was
on time.
Just on time. Just made it.
Martin, Thierry Henry, and you speak about in training how you'd laugh, or when you're about to play a match, he's like, you guys aren't ready to see what's coming. There was, when he out-jumped Lehman to touch the ceiling in the gym and Lehman couldn't do it, like, how Thierry could do for me anyway, I grew up idolizing the man. Like, it took a bit of time for him to get to, you know, the status, I'm sure, of what you thought you saw. Nelka was amazing, but how good did Thierry, what you saw, the growth of it from the beginning to like when he came into, you know, how he kind of ended at Arsenal, because he seems like he could do absolutely everything.
It was incredible to see the improvement. I'd seen him play for Monaco, playing out on the wing, really quick, pacey.
That's what wide player on the wing.
Yeah, but he didn't have this sort of polished movement. I think he became a good, like, I wouldn't say posing.
Yeah.
Or maybe I would say posing, but he created a rhythm, do you know, like a panther.
Swagger.
Yeah. And once he had that confidence, he knew, because he could score that goal, couldn't he, from the left-hand side, his favourite sort of finish. I've never seen anyone, it was almost like, you know, in the playground as kids, you see people waltzing past people, but to see it in the adult game, and I saw Henry do this twice. I saw him do it against Spurs, I saw him do it against Liverpool, to go the whole length of the pitch, in and out of people. You can't believe the skill, the power, the pace, the determination, the ability to do that, not once, but many times on a pitch, was just incredible. You know, it was amazing. And I remember the Southampton game away, it wasn't clicking for him in the early part of his career. He was sitting on the bench, he was coming off the bench, not really doing it when he came on. You could see the talent, and I thought, this kid's one of the best I've ever seen. Like didn't matter what you were doing, tiddlywinks, whatever it was, he would start off and didn't win it. Next time he would. He knew it inside out. He was a very quick learner in everything he did.
That's
and
key.
I think he studied Ian Wright when he went centrally, moving off the shoulder, trying to play, on the last defender. And then it all came together. But the Southampton game away, I run to him to say, look, I'm going to tell I thought I need to say something really big here. It's going to really impact on him, because we're senior players. We need to tell these guys. They don't realise how good they are. I'll be able to tell my grandson that I played with you. Your grandson? What are you on about? Your grandson? You mean your son? I said, no, I have a son. But when he eventually has a grandson, or we have a grandson, I'll be telling him how good you are. And actually, we've now reached that stage. I'm getting there now where I'll be able to tell him in the next year or so who I did. Well, actually, on replays with me, to be fair. But that's how big it was. But and I wasn't wrong because look what he's gone on to do. He's an incredible talent, one of the best players you've ever bought on a pair of boots. It was like an Olympic sprinter, not wearing spikes, wearing football boots. He could still be playing now. I had visions of him as a 40-year-old playing fullback and still out beating everybody if he fancied that. Yeah. But he came out of the game, like many of the great players, they don't really want to hang around too long. He went to Barcelona, he wins the Champions League. Yeah. He was incredible talent.
Yeah, and he's such an incredible. I mean, he played with so many incredible players, and that's an interesting thing because is it the reason why nowadays us as fans, in particular, need to be patient when you see certain players come in? There doesn't seem to be a lot of patience around at all. I remember the other day there was a fan saying to me, it's after a couple of games, having a go at Mikel Merino. Oh, what? I said he came in, he ain't had a pre-season. He broke his shoulder and he's played like 2 games. Give him a chance. Because Henry didn't hit the ground, nor Bergkamp, did they? They didn't hit the ground running immediately, did they?
No. Marino is, I think he's brave in possession. I like the way that he lets it roll across his body and he tries to punch it forward. He doesn't play safe. You see occasionally he's got to get that balance right. Yeah. But I think he looks good to me in that role. Wanyeri is a young kid who it feels that Arteta, he will protect these youngsters. I think there's no doubt Wanyeri has got the ability. Yeah, it may be that they have to find somewhere else for him to play in the team, whether it's out on the left, or because obviously Ødegaard now, Martin's coming back in, and we see what a wonderful talent. We always knew that. Yeah. So he sort of stitches up that right hand pocket, and he's in tandem with Saka. They're ready to party, aren't they, on that side of the pitch? The rhythm, the movement, it's fantastic. So it's hard to see that changing. Although if Martin gets an injury again, I can see Wanyeri now being ready to do that, to fill in. He's probably 6 months away from that when Martin gets injured at the start of the season. So that's building. Wanyeri's a great talent. Trossard deserves his chance, so I see why the manager. Yeah. I'm a bit worried. You're looking at it, you think Jesus and people, look, don't drop your heads, guys. Do you know? Come on. A lot of criticism. I thought at the weekend he wasn't running back as quick as he used to. Yep. It's kind of like, come on, don't drop that. Definitely going forward. But you can understand how they might dip a bit because they're watching everyone else. Both of them come from cities. Zinchenko has come from City. They gave us something at the beginning, and now we want them to finish the job off. Yeah. But we're a long way behind Liverpool at the moment, so no need to panic. I think our away games have been really tricky, and that's where I still really believe in the team. And so I wasn't surprised by these last 3 performances. Just got to do it now again against Manchester United. We got a game coming up this week, right? That evokes memories for me of what I used to love about you, right? Because as fans, we love to see that player that is almost like. That player that's almost like we feel like you're representing us and our feelings on the pitch. The Battle of Old Trafford at United. I know, listen, you've done wonderful things within your career, but it's one of the things that you are very known for was that big altercation with Ruud van Nistelrooy. Now, it's actually just been named manager of Leicester City. Tell us about that day, the emotions.
Has its own chapter, its own Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it's got its own chapter in the book, which it deserves that. In those days, when Arsenal played Man United, that felt like the World Cup final. That was like even bigger than us playing Spurs at those times. That game was the game. that stopped the world as far as I was concerned in football. Would you agree with that?
Well, it was important to me. It was important to the guys. Manchester United were pretty well running English football when Arsène Wenger turns up. And I think they see him as this arrogant Frenchman who comes in, and who does he think he is? And it was like, well, actually, we're going to protect him because he's changing my career. So I'm right in his corner. And we had these games, the 97-98, obviously they were a dozen points ahead, weren't they, at Christmas? The bookies were paying out. Somehow we run them down. And, then Ferguson's in the press saying they ain't going to do it because there'll be a mistake and they haven't got the bottle. And we were being questioned, and we did it. And then we had the 99 where we, somehow they win that game at Villa Park. And I think, we were better than them that year, and they win a treble. It was just incredible. So it kept on coming back. This game, Old Trafford, was just a huge game. 2-2 when we win the league there was just an amazing night.
Amazing.
You can still see in your mind's eye the fans, the guy in 97-98, celebrating.
Yeah,
the feeling was, we had Spurs weren't the local rival. They just tried to stop us at the end of every season from trying to win the title.
True.
How many times did you ever lose to Spurs? How many times did you ever?
God, I don't think it happened much. I think I lost one game against Chelsea in 22 years, something similar for West Ham.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more against Spurs. We did lose a couple in my career. We were down to 9 men, I think, one game at White Hart Lane. Probably the game I remember most was Sol Campbell when he goes to White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
How Sol then becomes a man that day.
Yeah.
And, he was like a train that we couldn't get out of the station. But that day, you couldn't then stop him after that. Yeah. But how he dealt with that. But that really galvanised the team. The game in 2004, all those years later, it was kind of the beginning of the end of my Arsenal career. And I wondered if some of the directors were thinking, what's he doing, taking the youngsters into battling in that way? And subsequently, I've spoken to the manager, to Freddie Ljungberg, and they were like, no, that was galvanising us. That we were like, we couldn't take it anymore. Yeah. Like if you see, there was been a bit of an attack on some of our players, should we just call it that? And you see some of the decisions, and you think like these days, they would have ended up with 8 players on the pitch. It wasn't us dishing out. And the shout used to be, same old Arsenal always cheating. No, it wasn't us cheating. And even in that game when Patrick gets sent off, if you look, Van Nistelrooy is just wily old fox, isn't he? He's left all sorts on Patrick. And then goes down. Patrick doesn't even catch him. So we were getting particularly angry with all this, and it was a lot of fever, a lot of suspensions, a lot of fines. Man United players, I think, kind of got away with that one nicely. I was worried about the aftermath of that and how we were going to deal with all the suspensions. But actually, it just galvanised us even more. It was really important that we didn't lose that game at Old Trafford. Yeah. And of course, then we went unbeaten for the whole season. And so that penalty was hugely significant.
Yeah, and you jump up and you.
We jumped up. We gave him a little bit.
Accidental, deliberate.
Well, I remember just jumping in the air and thinking to myself, what do I do now? Do I land on him? Do I just bounce next to him? I've been accused by Man United fans of it was like a Cantona moment. It was like as bad, and I thought, well, actually, I just jumped in the air. Yeah. But you can say it was on Sporting. But whatever way, I have no regrets. I wouldn't take it back.
Good.
Good. I'm glad
that's what I want to hear.
It's a part of history now.
Yeah. Do you ever have you seen him since? Have you?
Well, the FA Cup, I tried to shake. I kind of shook his hand, forced him to shake my hand. I don't think there's an issue.
You said you'd have mutual respect if you saw like.
It'd be an interesting one. I don't hold any grudges. Or I don't have any hatred.
I remember listening to the radio. I think it's a couple of months back, and it's when he was was he the manager yet, or was I think he was just no. It was after Ten Hag. Anyway, you said something. About him, like not bad, but like, and then there was callers.
It wasn't enough passion.
Yeah, there was call. Yeah, you saying, "Oh, that's it." You sort of said, "Oh, I was sort of looking for a bit more passion from Van Nistelrooy." So he was number 2 at that time, to Ten Hag, and I remember a load of United callers calling in and saying, "Oh, look, you're still carrying grudges against Van Nistelrooy. You know, he's the number 2, and you still want to attack him and stuff like that." I remember that. Do you remember that? Remember that on the road?
Do you know the thing? I do, but I genuinely, you know, look, I'm a very honest pundit. So if I now, whether this was a trained behaviour, whether Ten Hag had said, no, you sit there and you keep quiet, you know, like if I'd have done that role for Arsène Wenger and on this journey, just bringing it back to the book now, when we go on this journey, Arsène Wenger says, look, I regret you should have been one of my assistants. I did a year with the club. We got to the final 206. If I'd have sat next to Arsène Wenger, you try and stop me from being passionate. You try and stop me showing how much of an Arsenal fan I was. It's too controlled. I get it. There's a respect. But that's where I was coming from.
Okay.
That, you know, like, okay,
so,
come on,
United fans,
come on, Rude, if you really, you know,
Yeah.
we saw that passion when he became the manager.
Yeah.
You know, and he's going to have to keep a lid on that now.
Yeah. Do you think
now that he's the permanent manager of Leicester?
Do you think he'll do?
I think he did well at PSV.
Do you think he'll do well at Leicester?
Yes, you know, he left PSV quite quickly. So clearly things have got to be right for him in his setup. I don't think it's going to be perfect there. But I think he's shown at PSV that he can do okay, and he improved things at Manchester United. So he just needs good staff around him, but the games will come thick and fast. And they're just above, aren't they? The bottom 3, bottom 4. So I thought it was a bit tough on Steve Cooper, to be honest. 2
players in particular now really standing out, and you know, Saka, as we know, a player's come through the ranks, and a player that we been without for most of the season has come back in over the last few games, Martin Odegaard. How good are these two? Yeah. And why has there been such a difference now that Odegaard's been back?
Because he gives us, look, last season, he won the ball back in the final third more times than any other player in the Premier League. So without possession, that's a massive loss. And then he was creating more chances than anyone else last year. I think 102 opportunities created. So in both areas, he's the most creative and he's the best at winning the ball back. So any team would suffer. You straight away against Chelsea saw, you know, those opportunities coming. Clever little balls that he just links over. And also I think as well, Saka as well becomes that he's up on his toes. He's just waiting for that opportunity. Now he scored some good goals since he's been back. But the goals are more about confidence with Odegaard's pass. Do you understand? I'll take this one now because I know he's going to find me. He just comes alive a little bit more. The problem is when he doesn't play, you know, I think, as I said earlier, Wenger will now be able, I believe, to come in and should be given the keys to do that if Odegaard takes another injury. I hope that doesn't happen.
I hope so. Yeah. There's no way I can't have you sat here and not talk about defenders and just talk about, and I can do the obvious thing and say Saliba and Gabriel, how good are they? But I want to go the opposite way. What have you seen as a defender? Is there any weaknesses from those two out of it? Because
sometimes I think we're too deep from kicks, goalkeepers' kicks.
Okay.
I think that we fall too deep, and you'd like to talk to the analyst to say, right, you know, can we have a chat? I think your starting positions are too deep.
Yeah.
And it's our midfield players heading balls that sometimes our defenders should be heading. Sometimes I think we can be a little bit too far apart.
The centre back, put both of them. Yeah.
And I think sometimes that we, when we get pulled out of position, I'd like to see us recover back into our slots quicker.
Yeah.
The Chelsea goal is okay, case in point. And it's just like, you just need to get back into that shape. And then the midfield obviously needs to be, you know, like organised midfield. So those two now, I think Saliba and Gabriel are two fantastic defenders, by the way.
Unbelievable.
Just talking about.
Which one of those two would you say?
That's so
You're going to ask that as well.
No, that's a harsh one though.
Which one of those two, their game is more similar to how?
Well, you know, I would have said Gabriel, but I couldn't score goals like he's scoring goals like it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Goals he's scoring. He has that knack of being able to get his head on the end of the ball. It's incredible.
He's the best at that.
I did speak to both of them. I got to meet the end of last season, and I went past Saliba to say, right, everyone loves you, but I want to really praise Gabriel because, you know, he didn't start last season, by the way.
Correct.
They didn't play him. And he's had to really work hard to get in. Now we know he's a fixture. And it's like, we all love Saliba. He's silky, he's Rolls Roycey. But Gabriel I just think he needs to be told how good he is, and he seems to be, and he took that on board. You know, when we had this chat, who did you play with? Did you play with Sol Campbell? Did you play with Tony Adams? No, they played with me.
I love that you say that.
Yeah. So it was kind of like it was nice to meet them. They're mountains, you know. They're very mobile, and they seem calm as well, quite humble guys. Haven't yet met the Calafiori. Is another one, looks like he's in the same mold.
Timber as well,
big guy, calm, got, you know, pops into midfield, and Timber's got that aggressiveness about him. And he's sort of learning the Arsenal way. They become Arsenal fans, don't they? They get it, the fever. I really would like this generation to feel that success of a trophy. That's the next thing now, to really galvanise them into the club.
Does it make you smile seeing the dark arts? That we know we've got the media branded us as, you know, they it's not cheating, but of dark arts side with Arsenal, with Mikel Arteta. I know,
which you were known for.
You were quite known for, and
you're known for a bit of dark arts, right?
And also in the book, you speak about like Fergie. How I didn't know this, by the way. He changed when his team players went away for England. He changed the airport they land to closer to Manchester, so they get more rest time. Like these little nuances. How
game within a game.
Yeah, that's mental.
You see, the thing is, there was a period when. Under Wenger, and Wenger wasn't doing this, where we're playing Manchester United, and it's like, right, we don't go in the tunnel first. They do.
Right.
You know, we're the home team. They're going to be thinking about us. They wait for us. We don't wait for them. But they obviously played Manchester United, did this all the time. They liked that one as well. So like the referee was this particular day, Graham Poll is saying, right, someone's going to get fined here because no one's going out into the game, but we don't go. We don't go. So it's like you had to have that. It became like we fought for every decision. Do you know?
Yeah.
If you scrap and fight for every decision, you scrap after every ball. It basically becomes that big. You know, you can't just be detached from what's going on. You've got to be well aware that was that a foul on my player?
Get around the refs and stuff like that.
It gets you at fever pitch, and we're fighting, scrapping for everything. And we wouldn't. I wasn't there when in the tunnel. When Roy Keane and Vieira and I look at that and think, you know, it probably would have spiraled even more because, you know, I wouldn't have backed down in that tunnel. And it's kind of that's all part of the game within a game.
Who can really have it out? Sorry, bro, I know you want to go. Just like in your team, because I've been at clubs where you're with them so much. There is fights in the change rooms, there's fights on the training pitch. Is there a story? I haven't read it in the book where there's. I don't know. There's a few of you that can go at each other. Is there someone who really no one really wants to go at because he's a real tough man in that Arsenal?
But you know, it wasn't like that. So we're footballers, essentially. We're footballers, essentially, but we'll back each other up. Do you know, in the situation where Ian Wright kept getting into. Ian was like a middleweight boxer. Ian was like throwing punches. You know,
really?
Yeah. And I remember saying to Ian, "Look, Ian, you know, we need help." So we need a call of some sort, you know. So in rugby, I think they had that 999 shout in the British Lions. If you Cecil, if you have a little look at your stuff, read the history, you'll see. I said to Ian, we need something. Why don't you shout, let's get the kettle on? So he would shout, let's get the kettle on. We would then sprint to the tunnel because we knew then there was going to be some trouble. Now that happens in one game where it goes too far and the police at Highbury want to arrest us. And Ken Fryer comes into the dressing room to say, you know, come on, the police want to arrest 3 players. Yeah. You'd have to read the book. You only got to chapter 5.
I must have missed that session.
So that I kind of put that in there, and the boss is like, "Come on, Ken, for fuck's sake, we're the home team. Arrest their players."
Yeah.
So we, you know, surreal moments. It was about the team spirit. We're building that togetherness, and we had to be one, you know, one for all and all for one.
You know, things that always surprise me with you, right, is that like I remember you obviously as a player. Remember how fiercely passionate and aggressive and skillful you were. I listened to you as a pundit, and your knowledge of the game is unbelievable. How comes you never went into management?
Well, Arsène wanted me to do it, and you know, as I say, he always had an idea of bringing me back. It was difficult, and we cover this in the book, where I don't think the staff, it was explained to them well enough. So there was some nervousness from Pat and from Borough about me being there. And in 2006, we get to the final of the Champions League, where the bosses asked me to train. I'm training every day. And my job was really I went to the home games, didn't go to the away games. I trained with the back four. Me and Pat were working with the back four. We didn't concede to the final. Matthew Flamini was encouraged to play left back. The boss couldn't get him to play there, so I helped talk that through. Was given that role. Colo, I nursed through the defence. So I really enjoyed that role. And then I think if we would have won the Champions League, I without doubt would have stayed, and it would have been probably recognised the work I was doing. But my father said he needed me at home. My mum, bless her, she's still alive. My father's gone now, Alzheimer's, and he was the main carer. And if anyone never is in that situation, you have to care the main carer. We had to support him, and he asked for that support. So I had to pull away, and we get to talk about that because I was fully able to explain this to the boss. And he's saying, look, I should have kept you there. I should have, worked harder to keep you there. The training I did for a year I wasn't being remunerated. I wasn't being paid. I was there each day. For me, it was a great learning curve to see the boss on the other side, to see how he was in the coaching area, how his mind worked. Slightly different, much more insightful for me, but I didn't push on and take it forward, and probably that's a regret.
Yeah, I was going to say, any regrets in that?
But you can't really regret that because if your family calls for you, they have to come first. So
yeah, well, the punditry thing ain't worked out too bad. You've come one of this country's,
I don't know. I get kind of bit parts. I've never actually sat down with analysis. Never have I had the stuff in front of me to actually enlarge on the analysis. A little bit of Match of the Day, you get that, but that's packaged for you with you. But I enjoy now. I do a lot of work with Simon Jordan on Talk Sport. I've given up that today, guys, because I wanted to do this.
Thank you. I respect for that. He gave up Simon Jordan to be here with us. Big up.
So no, but it's a chance. If I couldn't have my say, I'd probably want to get back into the game. Yeah. Things have changed now, but then the football world turns its back on you a little bit, and when you go into the media, you're on the dark side. Yeah, you're not actually one of the men, are you?
Yeah, I'm going to ask that as well, right?
Yeah, I want to talk
what's
about
that like? Because obviously you're a person, right? I listen to you a lot, right? You're very opinionated,
very honest as well.
Very honest in your opinions and very opinionated, right? And that obviously is going to piss some people off who are playing and stuff like that. How do you do with that?
I think there's an honesty to what I do, and I think there's a way that you say things that actually give people another chance to come back. I don't ever put anyone away. The only player that I think I was there was with Ozil back in the day. I just felt there wasn't the performance. I didn't smell an honesty in his work, so I really went after him. Because I wanted to see us win, and it wasn't quite there. But that was a period in the culture has changed now. The way the manager is, I think we've got really good people. I was disappointed to see Edu leave the football club. I'll never understand that. Haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. But
that's tripled his wages, though.
Yeah, but the thing was that he was loved, wasn't he? Idolised by the fans. It was a part of a project. I've talked about a few mountains here, but we certainly climbed a mountain to get very close to winning this English Premier League, and Edo's played a major part in that. So it'd been very satisfying for him to stay. Yeah. And obviously, when you're out of the club, you're away from it. You can step back and you can make that decision. And we'll respect that decision, but it's a loss for the club. Yeah. But you'd have had to drag me kicking and screaming out of that role if I was in that role, particularly with the manager now needing the support to win another Premier League.
Yeah, money is not the be all and end all. You said that when you went to Villa, like you wanted to be back at Arsenal because it's not always about the money anyway.
I left for £50.
We did actually you did actually double your wages, didn't you?
Yeah. So if I'm going to be sort of righteous and virtuous and sound that way, because you left yourself, Martin, for £50. But wisdom gives you the benefit of this, doesn't it, in life. And at Edu's stage of his life, I would have thought he'd have stayed.
Yeah, I thought he would have. Talksport, just quick, I have to ask you. You actually speak about, at first you didn't really rate yourself as a pundit, but you've grown into it. You think, Simon Jordan's a big figure, like a person who can, annoy you a little piece, but you say that made you better, you feel like, when you're attacked, a bit poked. What's it like working with him, Talksport, and this whole media space? Do you enjoy it?
Look, it's not a Punch and Judy show for me. I'm passionate about topics, so it comes out naturally. Yeah, it's not a false thing,
Comes across that way as well.
Yeah, so it's like his bark is bigger than his bite. Do you know? So look, behind the scenes, he's not a bad guy.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah, and I think he actually works hard to pull it together. If anybody he felt was being discriminated against behind the scenes, I think he'd be the first person to say, "Hey, hold on a minute, what's going on here? Let's protect. Let's bring together." So, I look for that rather than somebody trying to score points against me live on air. I'd rather look to those things behind the scenes to judge what sort of person they are, rather than what you hear on air.
I have another big question. Sorry, I've just got so many to just ask you mine. You mentioned as well, but like the treble was something Arsenal were chasing and you really wanted to see. But obviously, it was part of that Invincible team. This is a tough question. Would you trade an Invincible for the treble? Would you want the treble more? Is it a bigger achievement in your eyes, or do you think the Invincible stands?
Wow. Well, it's kind of like accepting what you have. That we can sober ourselves with the Invincibles, achievement, but we wanted a treble.
Yeah, he said
that's what the goal was. And for years we was disappointed. We can all look back and say, wow, it gives us something. It's quite unique what we have now.
Yeah.
And every time that a team loses, in our house, we call it the Invincibles Day. Yeah. And we will live to fight another year. So everyone's lost again. I honestly thought Man City would go a whole season unbeaten. Well. Yeah. And now I can't see him winning a game. So it's very difficult to predict.
It's a difficult thing to do.
Liverpool now are finding virtually perfection. But you can lose a game, you can lose a player, and then all of a sudden it spirals out of control. So we're going to keep pushing Liverpool now.
Yeah.
Can they be caught?
Of course they can. If you look at our ridiculous fixtures that we had at the start of the season, the games away from home, where we've had to go to Man City, we've gone to Spurs, we've gone to Villa, we've gone to Newcastle, we've gone to Chelsea. They've got to do most of those. They go to Newcastle this week. That's not an easy one. But if you play them in the right order, the City game was perfect for them, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have been after 2 matches. So it's like it all has to fall, and it looks like it's falling for Liverpool. So we've got to keep believing, be there to cash in. We need 7 or 8 more wins on the bounce here and come back to us just after Christmas to see where we are then.
Is Arteta the guy?
Oh, yeah.
Arteta the guy
he's got that fever. He desperately wants to win.
Yeah.
You can see that passion. He's living it, breathing it. They go through a lot, and he's very determined and he's like nurturing. I still don't think all the pieces are in the jigsaw puzzle yet. There's still work to do, and he knows that. I think the squad still needs to be stronger, and there'll be further changes. We might be a couple of years away from sort of his ultimate team, but they're doing a really good job in between.
And would you get anyone in January? Transfer window coming up.
I think you've got to keep trying to add. You've got to keep chipping away, buying players. We don't see so much, do we, now, as the young players that we bring in. Wenger bought lots of rough diamonds. Yeah. I'd like to see 1 or 2 of those so that we compete. The odd free transfer that's out there. Trossard came in and did it especially well. I like those types of signings. It doesn't have to be the main, the 100 million for Declan Rice was probably an obvious purchase. So like in all areas, I think, it'd be interesting. We get someone new coming in, the transfers, what we're looking at across the board to get the best players in every area.
And what does the future hold? You've got the book out now. That's great. You're telling your story up to now. What does the future hold for Martin Keown?
Happiness.
It's good answer.
I believe. And I have 2 grandchildren now. So, times are good. I've had to give that up. My wife, poor thing, she's looking after my young grandson today on her own. As I say, I've given up the radio, but she thought I was going to be there to look after the baby today. So it's grandchildren. Arsenal will always play a major part in my life. And my football will be there for as long as I want it there. I've worked for the BBC, I worked for various people, lots of new people coming in. So I'm hanging on in those areas. But while I'm there, hopefully I can add something a little bit different.
You should, we don't. I feel as well you should have your own sort of channel or something.
Come and join us, Martin, man.
Podcast.
Come on,
your own podcast or something like that on YouTube, because as I said, like, it's not just because you're here. Like, for years I've been listening to you speak. You're so respected in the business. Your opinions are so great. And your knowledge of the game, everything. I'd like to see more of you on those platforms as well.
Let's see what happens. There's a lot of journalists. I live in Oxford, okay, really nice place. There's lots of really good journalists around who are working for top papers, newspapers. I have a son who works for Dow Jones media company, and his football brain is amazing. Would like to get him into a podcast, so let's see if he's listening. If he's listening to this,
yeah,
let's get him tuned in.
You guys need to do it. You have to do it.
Take it to other areas.
Yeah.
Think out of the box.
100%. But it's been an absolute pleasure.
Guys, always
today.
a pleasure. Great to see you guys.
And the book out now for everybody to buy. And
the audio's there as well. I'm doing impersonations of George Graham, Arsène Wenger, Brian Clough, you name it. I've decided to show a little bit of talent. It's not just Ian Wright that's got talent.
No, the voiceovers, they're brilliant. They're brilliant.
Well,
it's
done. It's got to be done in a certain way. You know, it's like, this is the thing. You don't get any training for it.
Yeah. Wenger's is my favourite.
I've tried to bring, the drama. I've tried to recreate a dressing room scene where George Graham was like a sermon every week. It was the same thing. It was, pushing the same buttons. So hopefully the guys will listen to it and think, oh, God, that takes me back into that dressing room all those years ago.
Well, listen, fantastic. The book's available right now. So get yourself, we'll put a link in the description as well where you can get hold of the book. So that book is available right now. But it's been an absolute honour to have you on the A-list, Martin. And keep up the good work in punditry, and listen, you just keep up the great work that you're doing, and hopefully we see a podcast or something like that with you soon as well.
Thank you for watching this space.
Thank you.